Guys, if you're a fan of The Predator, you have to see this movie.
For a year, a month, and 9 days, I've been planning this exact moment. I'm scared. What was that?
What are we gonna do?
We'll get you back, okay? We'll just follow the river back up to the road, flag someone down. It'll be easy. Guys, there's an exit on the road. Does anybody have a cell phone? But we're just trying to get back.
There's something in these woods.
Go!
There's a creature lives in these woods.
What's up, universe, and welcome back to the web's first must-see comic and nerd culture show. Welcome to Comic Universe. I'm your host, as always, as my friends like to call me, the kingpin of comic culture, C-Dubs. I'm here, guys, bringing you today a review of a horror movie that I just saw with my wife the other night that was absolutely fantastic. It was wonderful. It was a creature feature, a monster movie, if you will, that came out of nowhere and just blew my socks off. And I am talking about Primal Rage, The Legend of Oh-MAH, as it's also known. Now, this movie is a Bigfoot movie. This movie, it takes place in the Northwest Pacific area, if you will, of the States. And it involves a couple, a newly reunited couple. The husband, Max, who was in prison, has just been released, and his wife came and picked him up, and they're on their way home to go meet his son, which he has not met yet. And during this trip, they make a pit stop at a gas station. He picks up a case of beer, and on their way back, they kind of run into this group of hunters, if you will. And these hunters are pigs, you know, chauvinistic monsters, and they're just standing there whistling at his wife, like howling at his wife, doing, you know, hip thrusts, if you will. And Max just kind of stands there for a second like, oh, it's about to go down. And then the leader of the group is like, guys, keep that thing in your pants, put it away, stop. And then he looks up at the guy and he goes, we don't want no trouble from this convict. And Max replies, ex-convict, if you don't mind. And his wife's just like, come on, let's go. And while they're driving, basically Max pops open the beer because it's the first beer he's had in however many months. And something comes out of nowhere, slams into the side of their Jeep, and causes him to spill his beer everywhere. So they get out, they realize what they hit was a man, and a half-naked man to be exact. And as they walk up to this man, they see that he's been kind of shredded, somewhat gutted. He has one of his legs is literally broken in half. Half of his face has been ripped off, and he's just like, you know, he's just moaning and groaning. He's clearly on the brink of death, and he clearly was running from something. Now, you know, her first instinct, Ashley is his wife's name, is Max's wife's name, is quick to want to grab the phone and call 911, and Max is like, no, we can't do that. I just got out of jail, and I just spilled beer all over myself. In my mind, I'm just like, why don't you just wipe it up, throw away the tank top, whatever. But anyway, and just at this moment, something from out of the woods starts chucking rocks at them. So they duck behind the car, and it's like a couple of seconds go by with no rock throwing, and as soon as Max pops his head up, boom, gets hit in the head with this rock, flips down the side of the mountain, falls into the river, and his wife just kind of runs in, jumps after him. And what's really cool is when she actually gets him and, you know, pulls him ashore, he's unconscious. They're freezing because of the Pacific Northwest, you know, the cold water. And they do some actual real survival techniques to try to stay warm, which I thought was kind of a cool twist to the story. Well, not twist, but just a cool concept to the story. Now, the thing is with this movie, you know, you may have seen Sasquatch movies, Bigfoot movies, Yetis in movies. They all seem to be really primal, really ape-like, if you will. And there's no real difference in this film. This film, he is very ape-like, he is very monstrous, but he's very intelligent. In fact, the legend of the Oh-MAH we find out in this film is it is believed by the Native Americans of that area that Oh-MAH, which is again just another version of Bigfoot, if you will, is actually the reincarnated spirits of the tribe's chiefs. So when the chiefs die, they actually come back of forest spirits, okay, and protect the forest, if you will, and protect the land from the white man, or anyone who causes danger to Mother Nature, if you will. What's really cool about this movie is directed by Patrick McGee, who's also played the Predator. I'm not 100% sure if Patrick McGee played the Oh-MAH in this. Patrick McGee is about 6'8", so he is a pretty tall gentleman. So it's quite possible he did play the role of the Sasquatch slash Bigfoot, if you will, in this film. But what's really fantastic about the Oh-MAH in this movie is that he actually wears a type of body armor in the form of bark. Really thick, tough, rugged tree bark. And it's been chopped off, and he has it wrapped around his forearms, his upper area here. He even has a mask that he will pull over his face to kind of protect his face. Now, at first, first when I seen this concept, I was like, this is kind of weird and wonky. You know, you're so used to pop culture just ingraining in your head of this dumb beast animal, where on the flip side, in reality, if the legend of Bigfoot or any of those versions were real, in order for it to have kept off of our radar this well for this long, it would have to have had its own sentience, its own intelligence, its own know-how and well-being. It just couldn't just blend in like a tiger does in the forest, you know, or the jungle, if you will, or, you know, like a gecko on the wall. There would have to be more to him. He would have to be smart enough to either maneuver and or outsmart us and our technology nowadays. So as I got to thinking about it in that terms, I started to really like that idea. And then it is at this point we find out that it's the spirits of the chiefs, if you will. And I was like, that's even better. That explains where the intelligence comes from. Now, this Oh-MAH, he is basically the predator, if you will, of the forest. He's hunting and killing people. He's using tools and weapons. He uses bow and arrows. He uses knives, hatchets. He's actually stolen. And you can see how far back they've been killing, because there's a scene where they actually go into the Bigfoot's cave, and we see some really old firearms, like from the cowboy and Indian days, the westerns, if you will. There's some old style bear traps that are there. So as he's killing people, he's kind of adapting what they have to his own arsenal, if you will. But this Bigfoot is hunting Ashley and Max now. And he's really interested in Ashley, as we can all imagine why. And he actually at some point kidnaps Ashley, taking him away from Max. Just after, I should say, let me back up a bit. There's you know, as Ashley and Max kind of regain consciousness and warm up, they're trucking their way through the forest. They change out of their cold clothes, if you will. And as they're kind of trying to wring them out and dry them, the Oh-MAH comes in, steals some of their clothes, so they don't have all the clothes that they normally would. So they're freezing and walking and lost in the forest. And they actually stumble upon the hunting group that was earlier, you know, being very rude to the couple. And they kind of go over it. He's like, you know, Max is like, we don't have a choice. These are the only guys here for miles. They always should know the way. They should have a cell phone or a sat phone or something that they could actually use, a CB radio, anything. Plus, you know, being with them would be better. You know, clearly something stole their clothes. Something is out there. You know, us being alone, you know, without any weapons, it's just not safe. She's like, I don't know if we should do this. He goes, just wait here for a second. I'm going to go confront them. As Max goes and confronts them, of course, they're being dicks to him. They're just calling him a convict, and they're like, "Where's your pretty little tale of a wife? You know, I'd really like to get to know her a little better." Blah blah blah, those type of things. And again, the leader of the pack, if you will, kind of steps up. He's like, "Guys, let's be respectful." And it is at this point the Oh-MAH is creeping. Again, the Oh-MAH is Bigfoot, is creeping up on Ashley. There's some really intense moments because you see he, through his camouflage, he hides literally in plain sight sometimes. Like he just sit there and he'll take his mask and he'll kind of close his arms, because remember he has the bark covering his arms, and he'll be up against a tree and he can actually see what's going on, and people are just like walking by him. It's absolutely like perfect camouflage. And so he gets really close and he manages to snag a piece of her hair, and when she turns around, she doesn't see him, okay, because the camouflage is so well done. And so she freaks out and runs out, and you know, she stumbles upon Max, and they're like, "Oh, there she is." And of course she doesn't have any pants on, so he's like, "What were you guys doing? Maybe I can get me some of that," type of thing. And eventually, you know, they just kind of all calm down and they just start kind of trucking their way through. And Ashley kind of figures out as the day goes on and the way the sun is setting, she goes, "Where are you guys taking us? Because you're not taking us back to safety or civilization or to the road, because the road would be back that way with the way the sun is setting." And that's when the leader of the group goes and explains. He goes, "Sometimes when you're out here hunting, you're hunting for things that you're not supposed to be doing. So we can't just go and have you calling the police and making sure that we don't get our prize and our cut and what we're out here for." He goes, "But we do have a radio, and when we're done, we'll bring you back to where you need to be." And it is also at this point where we're introduced to a Native American tribe, if you will. A sheriff first, and he is trying to deal with this particular area. They're dealing with a lot of missing people and a lot of missing hunters. And we are introduced to a store clerk who's this real jackass and doesn't believe in the Bigfoot myth. And every time there's a missing poster posted, he's like, "Oh, maybe the Bigfoot got him. Maybe the Bigfoot got him." This is the one part about the movie that kind of confused me, was we're introduced to the sheriff, who is an older Indian Native American fellow, and his partner, who was a younger Native American fellow. And in this movie, the younger one is really enthralled and believes in the beliefs and the spirituality of his people, where the older one, I guess he was trying to portray a tainted, you know, "I used to believe" type thing. It didn't really go too well. I would have made it the role reversal, if you will. I would have made the older guy believe and the stereotypical younger guy, no. Just because it's a little more believable. It didn't really come across the way I think they were trying to portray it. And that's the weakest part of the film. But it's really a side, you know, story, if you will. It's not really that big of a deal. And the younger guy is like, "Maybe we should go talk to the Witch of the Woods." And he's like, "Oh, no, she just creeps me out. We're not going to talk to her. She's just crazy." And, you know, he goes, "Let me show you. Let me give you back the passion you once had," type of thing. And they go to this house where a bunch of the Native Americans are. And this one elder tribeswoman, maybe the matriarch of the tribe or whatever, she has cancer. And through their ancient ways, they go into a teepee and they start smoking and drinking and hallucinating and things like that. And the shaman literally pulls the cancer out of her, and you see the cancer being pulled out, and it's really an awesome scene. And the guy is freaking out. The sheriff is freaking out, and this inspires him to go and see the Witch in the Woods. Now, during this time, Mikey, calm down. During this time, sorry, Mikey's hanging out with me today. During this time, we get to see the Oh-MAH literally attack Max, Ashley, and all of the Hicks, if you will, the hunters. And there's probably about, I would say, upwards to maybe 10 of these guys. And we get to see some really awesome special effects, practical special effects of the Oh-MAH just slaughtering these guys. And he's so smart that he's able to kind of duck and dodge. And as the hunters are shooting, you know, he kind of runs in a particular way to where they end up shooting each other. They all got shotguns, so it's all spread ammo. And they start taking each other out. And then a few of them run off because they're scared, and the Oh-MAH runs after them. It kills a couple with an arrow to the throat, to the knee. He ends up literally grabbing one of these guys and does a King Kong on the T-Rex maneuver and just pops the guy's jaw off, like literally open. But he doesn't kill him. He just leaves him there to deal with his pain from what he's been, you know, hunting these animals and things like that. Later on, he does find him again and stomp on his head. But the Oh-MAH kidnaps Ashley at this point in time. And during this time, Max ended up being one of the people that was shot. And the Witch of the Woods found Max, brought her back to her place, and then the sheriff meets the Witch in the Woods. Now, the practical effects on this witch, she's very stereotypical when you think of a witch. If you've ever seen the movie, what is it called? Legend, with Tom Cruise, with the unicorns, and Tim Curry as the devil, Satan, if you will. There is a green troll in that film that this witch really looks like, and it's so wonderful. The prosthetics, we got the long angular nose, long straggly hair, long fingered appendages with fingernails, and she's just creepy as hell. But she has jagged teeth. And she looks like someone who would be evil, but she actually helps Max, revives him, brings him back to health. And the sheriff and Max go on this hunting spree to go find his wife. It is at this time we see the unfortunate events that are happening to Ashley, where we're not fully shown exactly what's happening to her, but it's heavily implied, and it's somewhat shown. We don't get any thrusting or anything, but it seems to be that the Oh-MAH has, lack of a better term, has been sexually molesting, raping, if you will, poor Ashley. She finally finds a way to break free by taking a tooth that she found on the floor, cutting her ropes, and she ran out, grabbing an old, like, early 1900s pistol or something to that effect. And as she's running through the woods, Max and the sheriff run upon her, and Max ends up fighting, or the sheriff ends up fighting with the Oh-MAH, losing. But this film, I don't want to give too much more because there's kind of an interesting twist at the end of it all. But guys, you gotta check this movie out. If you are a fan of monster movies, if you're a fan of the Predator movies, just the old school Predator hunting in the jungle, if you will, this is exactly the same style where this Oh-MAH is just creeping up on people. He's hiding in plain sight. Instead of the invisibility like the Predator, his camouflage is just so well done that literally you could walk within inches of him and not know he was there. And the special effects and the kills are very unique and gory, but not like distastefully gory like something like from Hostel movies or from the Saw. They're just very, very impactful. And guys, I can't rave enough about this movie because we don't get enough of these type of movies. And another thing that's really, really cool, there's a lot of cinematography in this movie that kind of remind me of early 80s horror movies and early 90s horror movies when horror was kind of really, in its prime, if you will. So yeah, guys, I want to recommend this. This is a solid 5 out of 5 stars for me, especially in terms of horror. Now, it's not really, I don't want to necessarily say it's scary per se, but it's scary in the same sense that the Predator was, where there's just this creature out there, this unstoppable force of nature hunting you down. And the acting is okay. And I would only say that the sheriff and his deputy are the only kind of faltering parts to the movie for me, just because I didn't believe the necessary portrayal that they were trying to give. I think the deputy did do a good job, but with his age being so much younger than the sheriff, it just didn't feel natural to me. But that could just also be me, guys. But yeah, go ahead, get this movie. You can find it online, I'm sure. I'm not going to quite say how I kind of stumbled upon it. But guys, check this movie out if you can. If you could find it at a Redbox, or possibly find it if you have the delivery service through Netflix, see if it's there. If you find it on Amazon Prime and it's for purchase or rent, go ahead and do it. Do yourself a favor if you like these type of movies, guys. And guys, until next time, I will see you guys in the universe.